I want to talk about identity level change and how changing at the identity level versus the behavioral level gets you results that nothing else can or ever will. If you don't know me, my name is Cera. I'm a certified life and business coach. I help heart-centered service providers, creatives, and spiritual practitioners master the inner and outer game of business so that you can make more money with less hustle. And I've been talking a lot about identity level transformation because it is the focus of the work that I do in really all of my coaching, but especially in Powerhouse Mastermind, which I am opening for you all at Black Friday for $1,000 off. I'm going to talk about that more later. But today I really want to talk about identity level change, what it is, how it works, and why it gets you different results than trying to change habits or behaviors. And I want to start by telling a little story. If you're new to me, you may not know that I'm also a dancer and choreographer. I've been a dance teacher for over 20 years. And once, many years ago, more than a decade ago, I was teaching an intermediate advanced level dance workshop. And had the dancers going across the floor, and the girls were going down in flames. The girls were falling out. The girls could not keep up. It was tragic. Crash and burn, down in flames, people sitting down. It wasn't that hard, but going down in flames. And I was perplexed because in my world as a dancer, when a class is hard, you don't sit down. You're there to learn. You're there to grow. You're there to be pushed. I have cried through many a class, but you don't sit. Unless you actually are in danger of injuring yourself or someone else, you're going to fight. You're going to raise your hands. You're going to ask questions. You're going to ask for clarification, especially in a workshop you paid hundreds of dollars to be at. And I realized what I was witnessing was an identity level problem. And so I turned the music off and I stopped the dancers and I said, everyone who's sitting down, please stand up. And they stood up. I said, now everyone walk up to the mirror. And they walked up to the mirror. I said, stand an inch away from the mirror. And they did. I said, make eye contact with yourself in the mirror. And they did. And I said, repeat after me. I am a dancer. 50% of the room just started crying. These are people who have paid hundreds of dollars to be at a dance workshop and to spend their weekend working on their dance skills. Many of these are people who spend thousands of dollars on classes and workshops. Some of them also perform and they spend thousands of dollars on costumes and traveling for dance opportunities. But they don't think of themselves as a dancer on the core identity level. Some of them couldn't say it. I kept saying again and again, say it again, I'm a dancer. And they would get louder and louder, sobbing, snot, I'm a dancer, I'm a dancer. And then we had to stop and talk about what just happened for you. And a bunch of them said, I don't think I deserve to call myself that yet. I'm not good enough. I have this idea that there's some level I have to reach before I can call myself a dancer. Meanwhile, I take dance classes. I spend money on dance. I spend time on dance, some of them 10 hours a week or more on dance, but I don't yet think of myself as a dancer. I'm a person who wants to be a dancer. I'm an aspiring dancer. I'm a hobbyist. I am, a beginning mover, but just I'm a dancer. It was so deep and so tender, it hurt them to even say it and claim it. But when you're a dancer, that's just who you are. When you're a dancer at the identity level, you don't go down in flames in a class. You work. You raise your hand. You ask the questions. You fight to the end. You might go home and be like, I just got my whole shit rocked. I just got confronted face to face with how far I really have to go in my studies. And after the ego sting, I'm elated. I'm grateful for it. It's a little kinky that oh God, I fucking suck. I have so much to do. I have so much more to go. That's exciting. It's exhilarating. It's painful and it's exhilarating. That's the identity growth edge. It's painful and it's exhilarating. All of our growth edges, painful and exhilarating. What our ego likes is to be the best dancer in the room. Our ego loves being the best in the room. The problem with being the best in the room is that it feels really good and does nothing for your growth. We don't learn anything from being the best in the room. It just feels nice, right? We get our little stroke and we're like, yes, tell me I'm good. Give me my gold star. Give me the head pat. I love feeling like I'm the best in the room. But no growth happens there. No, I'm not saying that's bad. It is really great sometimes to go give yourself the experience of putting yourself back in an absolute beginner situation and seeing how far you've come, especially if you are the kind of person who struggles with giving yourself credit and has a kind of mean inner dialogue where you tell yourself you don't know that much. Go get in a room with absolute beginners and be like, oh yeah, actually, I do know my shit. Okay, this is good to be reminded of. It is nice to give yourself the experience sometimes of knocking it out of the park and being the smartest, being the most talented, being the best in the room. But we've got to understand that there's no growth happening there. Good for the ego, good for the confidence, not good for the growing. The growing happens in the rooms where we feel like we are bombing. The growth happens in the rooms where we feel like we are struggling. So going back to this identity level transformation, if at the identity level, these dancers, they were dancers, I saw them as dancers, believed I am a dancer, first of all, they wouldn't have been sitting down. They wouldn't have been quitting. They wouldn't have been reacting to the ego challenge with falling apart. They would have been like, as a dancer, I'm looking for the experiences where I'm pushed. I'm looking for my edge. I'm paying for this bitch to show me my edge so that I can meet it. That's right. Again, a little kinky, a little exhilarating, a little exciting to be like, oh God, that is hard. That is painfully hard. I can feel my ego resisting looking stupid in public right now. I can feel how uncomfortable it is to not be the best in the room right now. And I'm pushing myself and I feel my own grit. I feel my own determination. I feel my own strength. I feel a reinforcement of the identity. I'm a dancer, because if I was not a dancer, why would I subject myself to this? This is hard. Frequently in business, I encounter people sometimes who are many, many years into business, who at an identity level have not stepped into, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO. I own a company. That's who I am. It's not just a series of behaviors. It's not just a bunch of things I do. It's who I am. And when we approach things from a this is who I am, this is a core identity place, it opens up this new set of pathways for us because it makes us ask certain questions like, okay, if I were this person, if I were a CEO, how would I approach this challenge? If I were a confident, powerhouse, empowered CEO, how would I make this decision? If I were a confident, risk-taking entrepreneur, how would I deal with this particular set of challenges? That means something to us in our head. We have an idea of what it means. In the same way that those movers had an idea of what it means to say, I'm a dancer, you have an idea of what it means to say, I'm an entrepreneur. And you either believe that that is something you can own and step into right now, or you don't think you're there yet. But either way, you can ask yourself, if I was, what would I do? How would I respond? And we can move from that place. And that is completely different than just trying to approach a series of tasks and behaviors, right? If your business is all tasks and behaviors, you're like, I need to send out emails. I need to make a landing page. I guess I have to come up with offers. I have to set my pricing. I guess I need to do this. I guess I need to do that. But you might have resistance to taking those actions and doing those behaviors because the way you think of yourself, your core story is not, I am an entrepreneur, therefore these are the things I do. It's, I hope someday if I take enough of these actions, I will be allowed to say, I will have earned the right to say I am a business owner. I will at some point perform my way into this identity. And that's really kind of backwards in a lot of ways, and it makes change so much more difficult. Gary Mack wrote one of my favorite sports psychology books. It's called Mind Gym, and in that book he writes, you can't outperform your self-concept. And I think about it all the time, and I say it a lot. You can't outperform your self-concept. those dancers going down, sitting down in the face of challenge, it's because they cannot outperform their self-concept. And their self-concept is, I'm not a real dancer. Yeah, I take dance classes, but I'm not a real dancer. This is a real dance class, and this is hard, and it's not for me. I can't do this. Therefore, I count myself out, and I sit down. Something I'll tell you right now, something I've been saying in my dance classes when I've been teaching for years, there is nothing I hate more than hearing a beautiful girl use the word can't to define her possibilities. You can extrapolate it out. You don't have to be a beautiful girl. You can be a beautiful man. You can be a beautiful woman. You can be a beautiful they, them, non-binary icon. There is nothing I hate worse than hearing a beautiful, talented, capable person stand in front of me and use the word can't to define their possibilities in my presence. But yes, you can. Go ahead. Unless you are missing a limb, and even then there are people with missing limbs running marathons. What's your excuse? Yes, you can. But what you can't do is outperform your self-concept. And so if your self-concept is, this is not for me, you will remove yourself from that room, from that challenge, from that opportunity every time, because your brain has already told you, this is not for you. You don't belong here. This is for other kinds of people. It's not for you. That's not your identity. And so we have to change at the level of self-concept if we want to see ourselves taking those steps, if we want to make those behaviors inevitable. Going to give you another quick little story time. This year, every year I set goals. I set New Year's resolutions. I am one of the 8% of people who almost routinely reaches all of my goals every year for myriad reasons, but mostly because I decided a long time ago that that's the kind of person that I was. This year, I experimented purposefully with setting two different types of goals, identity-based goals and behaviorally-based goals. We are 11 months into those goal processes. On one hand, I set the identity-based goal of becoming a gym rat. I'm a mover. I've always liked working out. I've always liked exercise. But I didn't think of myself as a gym rat. Again, that's an identity that I have ideas about what that means. I have an idea about who that person is, the kinds of things they do, the kinds of decisions they make. And so my goal was not go to the gym 3 times a week. My goal was, I'm going to become a gym rat. On the other hand, I made a goal of producing and putting out 1 YouTube video per week on my YouTube channel, right? So one is an outcome process-based goal. The other is an identity transformation goal. I'm going to adopt this identity. We are now 11 months in. Let me tell you, the difference between these two things in my life is night and day. I decided I was going to become a gym rat. I'm in that gym all the time. It's my happy place. I like being there. If I'm stressed, I want to go work out. When I go, I have people now who recognize when I'm not there and they say, hey, where have you been? I have people who know my name and I know their name. If I go at a different time of day, I'm like, who are all these people? I don't see these people. I don't know them. I know my morning crew. So I also have the social supportive identity change, which is a big part of why working in something like a mastermind or in a group really helps. And I'm going to be talking about that more as I go through this launch over the next couple of weeks. I have that social support now of people who know me and recognize me. And then there's all these other unintended things that I didn't plan for that were a natural development as part of my progression into the identity of being a gym rat. Like I think about protein so much more than I ever thought about protein. I don't really track calories and I'm not really eating to lose weight, but all of a sudden I'm like really into protein. And then I'm like very interested in the progression of my workouts and lifting more weights. And I get really excited when my weight goes up on a lift, and I create new programs for myself every 12 weeks. And I'm really interested in tracking the progression of my lifts. When I create a new program, I'm so excited about seeing the effects of my new program. I'm really involved in this thing. I think about it a lot. I want cute gym clothes. My algorithm has changed, and all of a sudden I get videos all the time about correct form for certain lifts and little hacks you can do to increase your weight on certain lifts. Never got those before. It is locked in to just being a core part of who I am. And as I go into setting my 2025 goals, I don't really need to set any workout related goals because this has just become part of my personality. It's just become a part of who I am. Juxtapose that with putting out a YouTube video a week. I think I've missed 2, maybe 3 YouTube videos all year. but I am not a YouTuber. I'm not over there a lot. I'm not really engaging a ton on YouTube. My channel's only grown like less than 200 subscribers. I don't get a ton of leads from my YouTube videos. I do batch film my content, but my editing process is all kind of loosey-goosey. I don't have a really strict schedule or a system for how I do it. And then when I think about the two, I don't feel as connected to it. Making a YouTube video a week still feels like a chore. It still feels like a push. It still feels like a task that I'm making myself do in my business, and sometimes it slips. And so I know going into 2025, if I want to grow on YouTube, the way I've got to set up that goal is to become a YouTuber, not to make more videos. If I go into it, even just thinking about becoming a YouTuber, I start thinking about tracking my metrics more, and I start thinking about like, well, maybe I would buy a nicer camera and I would set up an editing schedule. Maybe I would even hire someone to help me edit my videos. All of these things change when I start thinking, what would a YouTuber do? That's different than me giving myself the task of get a YouTube video out every week, begrudgingly, as an administrative task. That's something I feel like I need to do for my marketing. Do we feel how those two things like land in the system so differently, and how working at the behavioral level is just a task on your to-do list that may or may not coincide with your self-concept, which makes it really difficult. Every week, 11 months in, it's still difficult for me to do it. Versus changing at the identity level where the behavior becomes inevitable as a result of who you're being. If you are in business and you even think of yourself as, right, like for a long time when I started coaching, I felt really uncomfortable saying I'm a coach. Like I didn't like it. It felt weird to me. And I finally got comfortable landing in the identity and saying, I'm a coach. People ask, what do you do? I'm a coach. But at a certain point, I shifted that. And when people asked what I do, I started saying, I own a coaching company. Very different identity. Because as a coach, I still didn't, like, all I wanted to do was be with my clients. I wanted to work with people. But the business part, the company part, the part where I was dealing with marketing and messaging and money and client delivery systems and back-end processes and team management. There were all of these things about the business side that still were like, I don't really like that part. But when I shifted on the identity level into I'm an entrepreneur and I own a company, all of these decisions, all of these behaviors click into place because I get to go, as an entrepreneur, how do I address this decision? As a business owner, how do I tackle these challenges? And it completely changes the way that we approach things. If you have not yet given yourself permission to own at the identity level that you are an entrepreneur, that you are a business owner, that you are a high earning individual, that you are a steward of wealth, that you are a change maker, that you are a whatever it is, this thing that you want to be, that you're taking actions toward being and maybe investing in courses toward being and spending money on being and putting time into being, but doesn't align with your self-concept. You haven't given yourself the permission to say, this is who I am. And these things that I do are because it's who I am, not because I hope that I become it someday when I get enough external validation and other people tell me I'm now allowed to say that I am, when I meet the benchmark, when I make $100,000, when I've been doing this for enough years, when I have enough certification, when I've served enough clients, right? Whatever this idea is that you might have of I have to hit this thing, and then the world will tell me when I'm allowed to call myself that, you're gonna keep yourself stuck in the same place forever. The external benchmarks will just keep moving because inside you still will not feel like you are that thing. This is why in Powerhouse Mastermind, we really focus on changing on the identity level. And one of the primary ways that I do that with my clients is through archetype work. Even starting to think of what you think of when you think of a gym rat and being like, this is what that person is like. That's an archetype you have in your head, a universal, applicable, this is what this type of person is like. As an entrepreneur, this is what this person is like. Those are archetypes. And many of us, all of us, have disempowered, Carolyn Myss calls them survival archetypes, that show up in our life and try to keep us safe by keeping us in a self-concept that has been advantageous for our survival thus far, very helpful, however, will not create the conditions for you to thrive in a new identity. And so we have to identify what are the old archetypes that I occupied. And frequently they are coming from a child consciousness place, from a wounded child place or a wounded teenager place. And then we have to look at what are the archetypes I want to step into. I need to go from disappointing fuck up who's shitty with money to empowered high-level CEO who is a steward of wealth, right? Like those are very different people who move very different ways in the world. So if you're over here trying to have a 500K year, but the way that you think of yourself at your core is a disappointing fuck up who's bad with money, you're not going to be able to outperform your self-concept. You're going to keep getting close and sabotaging. You're going to keep taking half-hearted action and then bailing every time you hit that growth edge because you're going to be like, that's not for me. That's not a room I belong in. That's not a place I can go because I don't occupy that identity. We have to shift you at the identity level so that the behaviors and the choices and the decisions that you make become inevitably aligned with who you want to be and the place that you're trying to get to. And that's the work that I'm doing with my clients inside Powerhouse Mastermind. You should probably join us. That's all I'm going to say. But I'm only taking 20 people. The doors are going to open on Black Friday. I'm going to give you $1,000 off. We're going to work on the identity level for 6 months. But it's not just inner work. We will also be taking the actions, right? So you will be getting the business support, the strategy, the messaging support, the hands-on back-end system support. We'll be identifying the gaps in your business and filling them in. But it's going to be really hard for you to take those actions if you don't change at the identity level first and or at the same time. So we work inner game and outer game so that you can master your business and really yourself. Because that is the thing that we need to do in order to have the results we want in life. It's not really about business mastery, it's self-mastery, because when you can operate yourself the way that you want to, you can take the actions that you need to take to have the results that you want to have in your life. Otherwise known as be, do, have versus have, do, be. You see what I'm saying? That's all I've got for you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear them. Okay, love you, bye.